Hey everybody, this is Elle Nash from the Unapologetic Women Empowerment Dynasty, and you're listening to the Unapologetic Women podcast, the show for women who choose to live their legacies unleashed, unlimited, and unapologetic. If this is a space you're curious about, visit unapologetic-women.com. Today we're talking all about love in the right places with Dr. Holly Battey. Holly mentors high-achieving, self-aware single women to find and keep the love of their dreams. With a doctorate in clinical psychology, she founded Find Love at Last in 2014 to empower you to find the love you've been dreaming of, and has been a coach, psychologist, matchmaker, and image consultant for over 15 years. Dr. Holly is a dating expert, thought leader, sought-after speaker, and regular contributor on international podcasts. She is the founder of the Single to Soulmate Signature System, the proven path to soulmate love, and her mission is mentoring empaths to rise in their romantic lives because the world needs more healthy, empowered love. She brings more than 15 years of rich personal dating experience before finding the wonderful man with whom she is happily married. She's based in San Francisco, California, and works with clients around the world. Thanks for joining us. This episode is really for any woman who's interested in love. This is Holly. Let's get the party started.
Okay.
Well, can I just say that you look amazing? Of course.
Oh, thank you. So do you.
Look gorgeous.
So do you. I love your blazer.
We're doing a little bit more formal today. I was slumming it yesterday. I thought I'll up the game a bit today. So all we have to do is to put on a blazer, and we have our fab on, which is
right.
Isn't that wonderful as a woman? How it's the little things that makes the biggest difference for us when we just start playing with fashion and makeup and hair and jewelry and business and relationships, and the more playful we become about it, the more fun it is, and the better it gets.
Yeah, definitely. I'm all about that.
Thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast today. I was quite excited when you said yes, because we've only had one conversation, but in that conversation, it was just like oh yeah, I want more of Holly. So thank you for saying yes to today.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
I feel like there's something that wants to be asked before we ask the question of all questions. What are you saying yes to in life at the moment?
Oh gosh, it's a great question. Well, I'm saying yes to my why, and I have a milestone birthday coming up at the end of this year. And so I've been saying yes to opportunities that before would have scared me. This year I've had 2 CBS News interviews. In the last month, I had my first talk post-COVID in person. Public speaking used to be my number one fear. And so it's really wonderful to have my why be bigger than my fear now.
I love that. I always talk about our darlings, our demons, and our dreams. And that our dreams have to be bigger than our darlings, which is our excuses, and our demons, which are our fears. And then allowing our fears to be a companion on the road to the dream. No longer being afraid of the fear, but just seeing the fear for what it is, in that potential for expansion.
Yes.
I personally found that for the most part, we've been so conditioned to be afraid of fear. And I don't go for the feel the fear and do it anyway philosophy anymore. And And I don't encourage people to live in a constant state of doing the things that makes you want to vomit. I don't buy into that philosophy anymore. Used to, right? I used to preach and teach and walk and eat that stuff as well. But when we lose the fear of fear, we start recognizing it for what it really is, and recognizing when it really is fear in terms of, yo, chica, your life is in danger here. You need to skedaddle, which I think we almost get desensitized to in this life experience, or I certainly was. And then that fear of just, yo, chica, come here, this way. There's fun, there's excitement. I've got you. You've got this. Nothing to be afraid of. And then moving from that expanded state into a joyful experience of what we thought was scary, but really translating it into excitement.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds amazing.
What's the milestone birthday, Holly? I have to ask.
The big 5-0.
So the club. Damn, I love my 50s.
Yeah.
I thought my 40s were great. I hated my 30s. My 20s, I rocked. I was such a badass. I thought, can't touch this.
Yeah.
This was a complete disaster. It was such a shit show. And then I hit my 40s and I started hitting my stride. It's something really powerful that happens for a woman in her 40s, in that we get the opportunity to peel back the layers and the conditioning and the masks and all the ways that we thought life had to be. But damn, I'll tell you, when you hit your 50s, I believe it's when life opens up to us to say, now I get to live my legacy. Now it's empire time. Now it's dynasty time. Now it's my time to do what I'm here to do in the most unapologetic, unabashed, beautiful, magnificent way possible. And it's no longer about doing it because we think that the sky is going to open up and, we're going to get hit by lightning because we're not showing up for the thing. And it's like, no, I get to do this. This is fun. This is enjoyment. And how do I get to do this my way? Good old Frankie, baby. Oh, so welcome to your 50s.
Oh, thank you. I'm almost there. Almost there. Yeah, Oprah talks about the 50s being who we're meant to be. And I certainly feel that coming on.
I feel like it's who we've evolved into being. It's like we've taken 5 decades of life and go, I'm taking all of that potential, the clay, and now I get to be the sculpture of my choice. It's a chosen self-identity, not a conditioned self-identity, if that makes sense. So, and can I just say as well, what I really appreciate about women such as yourself is in how you show up, in how you choose to show up and choose to be, defies all the old stereotypes of what it means to be 50. And I just want to say to the whole model industry and visual industry, it's time to catch up. We do not look old. We do not look decrepit. We don't look like we're about 2 feet away from the grave. Like women in their 50s defy the current conversation of what it means to be a woman in your 50s. And can I just say that we look sensational doing 50 these days. So shout out to all my 50-year-old ladies out there.
Amen. Yes, we're redefining, what it means and what it looks like and what it can be.
What else do you think we're redefining? Like, let's go there, because we are trailblazers, and I feel like this is something that we are not recognizing within ourselves enough. And we are redefining, as far as I'm concerned, what it looks like to be 50, what it looks like for us to live in our 50s, how women relate to each other, how women relate to business. Like, I do believe that we are here to redefine a lot in our generation. What are some of the key elements that you are starting to notice and go, yep, this is what we get to redefine as women in our
Yeah.
50s and beyond?
Yeah. Well, because of the work that I do, we're redefining our relationships with ourselves. We're redefining our relationships to others, our relationship to love and what can be possible there. Yeah.
Let's go to the love topic then, because I think that for the most part, love has got such a warped image in society at the moment. A lot of love is really codependency wrapped in a diamond ring. A lot of love is tolerance of things that are really unacceptable. A lot of love is unhealthy at this time. And I know that you specifically work deeply with love. So how do you define love, and how do you experience love?
So I think love really begins with ourselves. And, how we feel about ourselves determines what we will and won't tolerate from another. And that's true whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, a family relationship. And so it all stems from how we feel about ourselves. And in the work that I do as a psychologist, there are so many people walking the planet with unresolved trauma. And we believe that it's just part of life, and we just take it with us, like baggage. But trauma isn't meant to stay with us for all of life and be a negative influence throughout our lives. It is meant to, in a grander scheme of things, it's meant to move us, to heal us, for us to use it to make better choices in the future. It's really to grow us. And it's an opportunity. We get this message in our world that time heals, but time doesn't do anything. It's what we do with the time. It's with bringing a raised consciousness to whatever we have experienced that is still holding on. Still holding on just means it's unresolved and unhealed. But we can make that choice. We often need support to do that. But we can be healed and not drag that trauma into our future, because we're not supposed to. Only in the sense that, once we resolve our trauma, then we are wiser for it. We make better choices in the future. And once we resolve it, it dissipates and it no longer becomes this kind of subconscious or unconscious influence in our lives. So I want people to know that you can walk through life without your trauma making decisions for you, without it impacting your belief and what is possible in your future.
I want to challenge you a little bit. And I want to play with this because I want to play with this. So let's play with this. The concept of trauma, because so often I feel like as professionals, we have brought words into humanity that is defining humanity at the moment, and not in a good way. I'm witnessing way too many people that are using industry words like trauma, like anxiety, like depression. And this is not coming from a disrespectful place at all, right? I want us to start evolving from this. Because what I'm observing is that when people are getting stuck on these words, that defines their experience to life. And it's almost as though, because the words have become so daily used, that people are not resolving it, because it's like, oh, I have trauma. Oh, I have anxiety. Oh, I have depression. It's almost as though the words in and of themselves are giving them permissions to suffer. And so how do we start changing the narrative to focus on the outcome rather than the label? Like how do we stop using these labels to really empower ourselves to live in joy, not in suffering?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think our true essence is really one of joy. And, we come into the world, as we are created, and then we get all these layers kind of cast upon us by our experiences, by family, by different types of trauma, all different things, things that don't go our way. And so it's these layers of kind of muck, if you will, that affect how we see ourselves as different from how we were really created to be. And so really the work is, sometimes we are depressed. Sometimes we do feel anxious. Those are real feelings. Sometimes they're transient. Sometimes they're chronic. I see a lot of patients and clients who deal with chronic depression and anxiety. Those can be real. So often the course is to listen to our life. And what is the anxiety here to teach us? What is the depression here to teach us? For some of my patients and clients, it's a huge earmarker that we're on the wrong path. Often it's a spiritual crisis, a soulful crisis that is indicating this is something in our life is not right. And we need to right that path and realign with what fits better for us. Yeah. So I don't see it as a lot of therapists may, that it's just a symptom to manage. I think it's more a call to our spirits and our souls to rise to the occasion, that something is not working in our lives and we have to realign.
Amen to that. I was diagnosed with suicidal depression, and the antidepressants didn't work for me, and therapy didn't work for me. And I'm a trained therapist. I hated therapy. I hated every session. And I remember getting in the car and just bawling my eyes out after one session. And I said, God, that's it. I am done. You have got to show me another way, because I'm not sitting through one more session. And the universe took me to kickboxing, and I literally kickboxed my way out of depression within 2 weeks. So going from suicidal depression, no medication worked, no therapy worked, to 2 weeks, and my depression was gone, healed. And I come to understand that, first of all, I had to stop identifying as I am depressed or I have depression, and start recognizing I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling depressive emotions. And it came down to, because I was suppressing myself. I was suppressing the woman I am. I was suppressing my truth. I never spoke my truth. I really dimmed myself down for the people around me. And it was because I stopped thinking that, well, once I got the label and once I got the script, and once I got the okay by professionals, like this is what's going to get you there. When I stopped buying into all of that, and I took a real look, almost a clinical, if you want to put it, look, like becoming the observer and going, what's really going on here? And the same with anxiety. When I had an anxiety attack, it was like, where am I out of integrity? Where am I so out of integrity with a core value of mine that I'm literally lying on the floor and I can't breathe. Because at the end of the day, that's all these emotions are. They're just guidance to take a look at the stories you're telling yourself, take a look at how you're living your life, take a look at the choices that you are making. Not from I don't think it's from a judgment or a shaming space. I feel like it's from a really loving space of life and God, source, soul calling us back without judgment. Like, I don't think any of us are here to be perfect. I think we are all here to have an experience. But it's just that the further away you go from your true self, the more accentuated these powerful emotions are.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's all just a call
Wow.
home.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I feel exactly the same way. You know, as a clinical psychologist, I have been on both sides of the couch. Um, I had to be a client in order to become a psychologist. I was, you know, and then I also discovered coaching while I was getting my training. And so I've been on both sides of the coaching equation as well. I first was a client and then I was a coach. Coaching is always my, you know, I as I said, I've been on four sides of the coaching and therapy relationship. And for me personally, coaching is what healed my trauma, which is why I do this work. Because again, it's not a function of time, it's a function of raised consciousness. You know, I really don't believe in failed relationships. I believe the only failure is if we don't take the lessons. And I think life is the same way. You know, when we are feeling depressed or anxious, all of those symptoms are just signposts that something is not right. And we just often need some support and guidance to get us back to who we really are.
Mhm. It's just that sacred space for introspective conversation. For me, at the end of the day, that's the work that I do. It's not, I don't even coach anymore. I don't even say I coach anymore. I hold sacred space for deep introspective conversation for self-leadership. It took me 47 years to understand the concept of self-love. And so often I hear, especially women, talk about self-love, but not embodying self-love. Was self-love something that came easily for you? Or were you like me that was like literally
No.
lying on the floor and I remember praying and going, I can't do this anymore. Like, what is going on? And the voice in my head, yes, I have voices in my head, was like, until you get to love yourself, you can't receive love and you can't give love. And I was floored. And that started my journey to self-love. Would you mind sharing some of your experience, Holly, around the concept of self-love?
Yeah, be happy to. No, it was not an easy path for me to experience self-love. I mean, um, you know, it took, one of the reasons I do this work as a psychologist and dating coach is it took me a really long time to manifest my amazing husband. And I had some wonderful men in my life. I had some really not wonderful men in my life and everything in between. And, you know, I came from a dysfunctional home, not unlike a lot of us. There was domestic violence there. Um, and so because of that, it was really, really important to me, probably more than some. The decision of partner choice was super central for me. I certainly didn't want to recreate the marriage that my parents had. And so I was very mindful as I went through graduate school and all my years of college. And I was a serial monogamist. So, you know, from one relationship to another. And then I found myself at 39 in an incredibly toxic relationship. And I, at that point, drew a line in the sand. I wasn't someone who was comfortable being alone. And I ended that relationship, and I spent the next 8 months really asking myself the hard questions, doing another round of inner work. I'd already done some, but I did the lion's share, I would say, at that time. And I never wanted to experience another relationship like that again. And so I knew that in order, the common denominator of all our relationships, is us. And so I asked myself the hard questions and became who I felt I was meant to be, so that I would never experience that again. And so I created my Single to Soulmate signature program around those 8 months, where I had my own midlife awakening, if you will. And now I walk other soulful single women through that process so that they too can form a relationship from that place of self-love and their authentic power, so they can really use their voice while staying in feminine energy. And, so often as women, we leak our power unconsciously. We don't even know that we're giving it away. And so I mentor women to hold on to themselves so they don't lose themselves, fall in love with themselves first, and then, find and keep the relationship of their dreams.
What are some of the ways in which you see women leaking their power?
Oh God. All the time. It happens without them even knowing it. It can happen from the very first communication when someone is reaching out, on a dating app. It can be, we just don't realize how often we give away our power. When we don't use our voice, we're giving away our power. There's opportunities for us to step into our power every day, multiple times every day. And without someone shining a light sometimes on those opportunities, those pass us by often, and we're just unaware of them. It can also be, needing to have a really important high stakes conversation with someone that you're dating, or even in any context, truly. And passing up that invitation, though it's hard to not have that conversation, it's another leak of power.
This is going to sound weird, but I want to give a shout out and appreciation for toxic relationships and the role they get to play in our lives. My most toxic relationship was, and mine was 20 years, right? I'm a very resilient woman. I take a lot of everything. Was eventually the key to my liberation, but I had to choose to finally turn that lock. And I remember the process that I had to go through of recognizing just how toxic it was, making the decision that I was no longer wanting to be available for that, and then going through that absolute terror, especially after 20 years of, oh my God, what are you even thinking, leaving, what is going? And I was stuck for such a long time. I couldn't move. I was like, couldn't pull the trigger. And then one day I thought to myself, I am one of the craziest women that I know. Like, I do insane things that other people would never dream of doing. And it's fun for me. And why is it that I can do things where people literally die, and which is why most people don't do it, and I see it as fun, but this I'm struggling with. And I realized, because those things for me, I had somehow defined in my mind as adventure. And I was like, that's the key word. If I could make this an adventure, and I pulled the trigger like that and I was out.
Yeah.
I know that this is a sticking point for a lot of women, especially in toxic or abusive relationships, is pulling the trigger. Like they know they don't want to be there anymore. They know it's slowly killing them mentally, emotionally, physically. But there's something that's needed, a reframe that's needed for them to find, I don't even want to say the courage, to find the excited anticipation of, oh my God, yes, I get to do this. Is there something that you can share with our listeners? Maybe there's a woman who's sitting in that same space at the moment that she can use, or maybe you have used when you finally left your toxic relationship, to take that step.
Yeah. Well, I was just ironically just speaking with my husband last night about the moment I decided to leave that relationship. And, you know, as women, we often don't know what our bottom line is, you know, and that's problematic. We need to actually know so that when it drops below that, hopefully it never will. But if it does, we know that's our bottom line. And so for me, I remember being in my relationship and I remember thinking, if there's one more thing that happens, I'm gone. And I was thinking, I've been with my husband now 10 years and he's amazing. And I've never once in 10 years thought, you know, if one more thing goes wrong, I'm out of here. You know, even that statement is definitive in terms of clearly plenty has gone wrong here enough that just one more thing and I am out, you know? And as life would have it, you know, I think not a week went by and another thing happened.
Yeah.
And that was it for me.
Yeah.
And I said it in the moment to that partner and I meant it. And that was the beginning of the end. And it required a lot of strategy to get out of it. But in my mind, that was it. And I said it out loud in the moment because it was real for me.
It's so interesting as you're saying that. What I remembered is, and it doesn't have to make sense, right? I recall the day that I said to my ex, the day that I mow the lawn is the day you must know this marriage is over. I mean, how silly, right? But there was just this inner knowing. It was like, the day I mow the lawn, you must know that this marriage is over. And true as God, a couple of weeks later, I was in the garden mowing the lawn and I was like, that's it.
Here
Like,
I am.
it's over. And it sounds so petty. And I actually want to say to women, stop making things petty. Like these things, when there's resonance in your soul, they really matter. I recall also dating after that a guy who ticked all the boxes. And then I found out he was smoking. And I was like, I'm sorry. Like this is a deal breaker for me. And my girlfriends all talked me out of it. They're like, you are crazy. You know, he's so amazing. He ticks all the boxes. And I kept going, but guys, it's about the principle. It's about the principle of the smoking. It's not about the smoking. And they convinced me and I stayed too long.
Yes.
And looking back, I was like, no, that is a non-negotiable for me.
Yes. I want to pick up on something you said, which is I stayed too long. I have a family member who was married for 20 years. And at 10 years in, she knew this was not the marriage for her. She stayed 10 more years since she had that knowing. She had small children at the time, but 10 more years is a lot of time. And we don't have a whole lot of time here on the planet. And granted, we don't always feel ready as soon as we know. But I want to encourage the listeners to not wait 10 years once you know, or to minimize that gap between the knowing and the action, because there's so much more meant for us.
And to trust it, right? So by the way, I knew 1 year into my marriage.
Mm.
I was like 1 year in, and I stayed another 18 years. So, and I never shamed myself for that afterwards. And I remember periodically within that time, I would meet with a psychologist or, you know, a professional, and they would go, "Why are you staying? You're such a confident woman. You're a successful woman. You have everything going for you." And I just kept going, I'm not ready. Like, there's something that needs to heal. I came from a relation, or from a background where my parents got divorced and my mom couldn't cope. My mom literally fell apart after that. And I never wanted to be that woman. And it honestly took me 19 years to live in love. You know, I say that when I left, my marriage was probably the first time that I loved him enough to leave him.
Interesting.
So for me, that had to take 2 decades of my life, and I don't regret any of that. But I had learned so much in that process, and to then go into another relationship and to know immediately and still not trust myself. That's why I say I stayed too long in that relationship, because I was like, no, I know this is wrong. I know why this is a non-negotiable for me. But I had so much faith and trust in my girlfriends that I overrode my inner knowing. And so that's why I stayed too long. The lesson was learned. Like, when we learn the lesson, it's okay for us to move on. I feel like when we learn the lesson, it's almost as though there's another belief running in the background that goes, oh, but clearly I have to make it work this time around. My God, I learned so much the first time. I should be able to make this work now. Instead of going, and that's why I live a full body yes life now. For me, if something is not a full body yes, even clothes or food or anything, if it's not a full body yes, it's a no. It's not a maybe. It's not a I'll work on it. It's like, I worked on it enough. I know. I know who I am, and I know what lights me up. And we get to, and I almost feel like we get to start giving younger women permission to say, trust the full body yes. And if it's not that, then it's a no, unapologetically.
Yes, amen to that.
What does it mean to you to be an unapologetic woman?
Oh gosh. I'm not sure I thought about that before. You know, I think the last decade, I've just come more into myself, and I don't apologize for who I am, for what I want, for what I need. I'm far more vocal about those things than ever before. And I'm also much happier. And I think, you know, I talk to so many women every day who truly, the problem is at a systemic level, where we are conditioning women all over the world to be people pleasers. And, you know, it doesn't sound too bad at face value, but the impact of that is that we go on about our lives pleasing everyone in the world, often at the expense of ourselves. And so, and then we wonder at the end of, you know, a 5, 10, 20, 30-year marriage, why we're resentful and so broken, and we feel lost. And that's the reason, because we're not part of the equation. And so if our needs and wants go routinely unmet, and we don't set it up for success from the beginning with a healthy precedent, then we co-create the same relationship over and over. The wonderful part of that is that we can choose to do it differently. And by choosing to do it differently, we can co-create something amazing. But we start right here. You know? It all starts with knowing that we're worthy of having our wants and needs met. And I had a patient say to me last week, I don't know, maybe someday I'll think that I am. But it's like we come into the world, Oprah again, I'm a big fan. You are worthy because you are born. Beginning and end of story. And so, it's just all these layers of muck that need to be cast off so that we can come back to our true essence, And as I said to her, I said, you are a human being and you have needs because you are alive. And that is not going to change. So I think first accepting that we are worthy, that is one of the biggest wounds that we have in our world. The two biggest ones, I'm unlovable and I'm unworthy, or I'm not enough, it's the same. And once we heal that and we accept that we actually are because we are here, then we just have to go about finding a tribe that supports us and lifts us up and getting about our business of embracing our wants and needs and, living the life that really is meaningful for us.
Beautiful. Almost want to take a little bit further for Oprah. We are worthy because we chose to be born.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a courageous choice to come and be born into this world and to be part of the creation and to create. That is our worth. Nothing else is needed. Darling, what do you take an unapologetic stance for?
For healthy relationship with ourselves and others.
Damn, this was a good conversation. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So I'm going to put all your contact details in the description. So whoever is listening to this or watching this can just go into the description and get into connection with you. But what is the best platform for them to connect with you?
Well, do you know the demographics of your audience? Are they mostly on Instagram, Facebook, like age-wise? Do you have a sense?
So majority of my ladies are probably on Instagram because that's where are a little bit more unapologetic than on most of the other platforms. So would Instagram be a good space for them to connect with you?
Yeah, that's great. Did I send you my Instagram handle?
Yes. So I'll put that down below as well. Thank you so much. Ladies, thank you. Thank you for listening today. Thank you for being here with us in the conversation. It always comes back to love, to divine love, to sacred love, to divinity love, not Hollywood love. And love is a frequency. Love is a frequency. Love is the highest frequency, whereas fear is the lowest frequency. And when we start recognizing that we are conditioned to operate in fear, and we do the inner work to transcend to the frequency of love, everything changes. And that starts with ourselves. I hope that this conversation was as invigorating, inspirational, and liberating to you as it was to me. And so much gratitude to Holly for being here today. Beyond grateful. So have an amazing day further, and always remember we get to live our legacies unleashed, unlimited, and unapologetic. Cheers. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at The Unapologetic Woman and on LinkedIn at Elle-Naj. And if you're interested in experiencing the Unapologetic Woman Friendwork Soiree, book in for our next open meeting at unapologetic-women.as.me/unapologetic. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.